45 seconds. So basically, Kieran Smith froze. He got rooted to the spot. He had the longer reach. He had the longer jab. But he wasn't throwing jabs. He was just flicking his right hand out there, southpaw. Denzel easily picked them off on his gloves. And he was obviously waiting for a counter. That seemed pretty obvious. And he was very sharp in saying that. As much as Kieran Smith froze, Denzel was very sharp. Kieran, with his height advantage, he ducked into a right hand that didn't fully land, and it left him off balance. And Denzel, swift as a cat, followed up with that left hook that took his legs out. There was one more right to the body and a right to the head. And it was over. 45 seconds. Now, if Kieran still believes that Johnny Beck let Denzel Bentley be competitive so he could get bigger fights, now he knows that boxing is real, right? And it doesn't matter if you're Brit, Eastern European, or American, you have to take this very seriously. There's a reason that American boxers and Eastern Europeans are so good, because they take it seriously. If Kieran actually believed this, that Johnny Beck allowed Denzel to be competitive, that means Kieran underestimated Denzel, when Johnny Beck clearly didn't. Johnny Beck kept the spacing at a respectable distance, because he realized Denzel can fight, can crack a little. Kieran didn't use enough of the ring. First round, got caught cold, probably dry, didn't build up a sweat, didn't use his feet, didn't really give himself a chance defensively. And Denzel, he's been in the ring with Johnny Beck. He's already had a bad defeat to Felix Cash. He's got over that. Went in the ring with Johnny Beck. 2-time British champion. Beat the likes of Udofia. Very useful domestic 160 pounder. Destroyed Marcus Morrison. I know Marcus ain't great, but it's there. It's there. And Denzel looked really good. And he wasn't overwhelmed by the occasion. It wasn't the first day at the rodeo. Kieran, as much physically or technically, he may have been out of his depth. He was mentally not there. Very impressive defense of the British 160-pound title by Denzel Bentley, though. Has to be said. Unless he wins a world title or avenges the Felix Cash loss. I can't say he's the best domestic 160-pounder, but on recent form, he's given Felix a hiding. Felix has regressed, and Denzel, since being annihilated by Felix, has come on bundles. In hindsight, with a WBO mandatory awaiting, although he was in third place after Daniel Hrgovic getting their title shots, this wasn't a good idea. I picked Joyce to win, but this wasn't a good idea. He blew his title shot. All the complimentary things people have been saying, he's a top 3 heavyweight, they're not going to be saying that now. He hasn't even had a title shot. Hrgovic fought this guy because it was an eliminator. What was there for Joe Joyce to gain? This morning, Zhang wasn't recognised in none of the sanctioning bodies' top 10. None of them. But I'm sure that's going to change now. Wasn't ranked. The key to boxing, heavyweight boxing, is the relaxation. And another key, there's a few keys to be honest, is the jab. And Zhang, in that very gaudy, quite fly robe he had, he's relaxed. Like, fighting is nothing to him. It's nothing to him. You can see it's nothing. He's 39. He's not scared to fight anybody because he knows it's make or break at 39. And he's so relaxed in there. Like, people have compared Joe Joyce to George Foreman. And it's Zhang who is like the reincarnated George Foreman. And before anyone saying you're getting too excited because he won, I've said this from a long time ago. I said it for a long time ago. I remember in Twitter I put up a post and said, I like watching Zhang fight. And at the time, he was took as a bit of a joke. And a few people reluctantly added, yeah, I like watching him too. And he's so sneaky. He's so sneaky and crafty with that backhand and that 1-2. And he came in at 19-12 and he used it to his advantage. He got on the front foot and was not only the stronger fighter, but had the better hand skills. With Joyce coming in lighter, when I broke the fight down, I was thinking, yo, he's going to come in lighter and he's going to move. Keep your head off center to the left to avoid his backhand. But Joe had no clue how to fight the southpaw stance. Just like he had not much clue how to fight USYK. He came back into the USYK fight in the WSB, but with brute force and bluster. You know, Zhang came in there with love handles. I was thinking, he's not in shape. Surely he's not in shape. But Zhang doesn't really, he probably don't need that much cardio. He's a puncher. And he said he's coming to knock Joyce out. He can't leave it to the judges. And he came in there with the mentality that was needed. And like I'm saying, you know, having a few love handles, coming in there, basically 20 stone. It's all about the relaxation. You can do cardio until your body's shredded and you look the business, and you can run cross-country marathons and do all types of gym workouts. But boxing, it's all about knowing your ring craft and how to carry out a game plan. Like I say, relaxation. It's not easy to relax when someone's trying to take your head off. And Zhang has no fear of fighting whatsoever. None at all. What you will find with a lot of the fighters, Eastern Oriental fighters, is they're not distracted. They're not distracted, you can see. I know Inoue is Japanese, but they're just not distracted. They know in their countries, I'm a boxer. That's what I'm known as. I'm not a comedian. I'm not a quirky guy who's got quotes. I box. So they know their identity. They know what they're there for. You know, Joe was getting through with his lead, but there was no steam on it. And when Zhang landed that 1-2, the left straight down the pipe, and it bounced off Joyce's chin in the second, you knew this was going to be trouble. And then soon after that, he hurt him with a left hand. Joe was all over the place. All over the place. The second round, in his right eye started puffing up, and this was going to be a tough evening. There was another left hand that cracked him around the orbital bone region on the right side of his head. Joyce came back, but really and truly early rounds, he couldn't trade with this guy, and he shouldn't have been trading. You know, his face was busting up. That jab was doing a hatchet job on Joyce's face. And Zhang does a good job keeping his chin tucked in. It's almost a bullying tactic. Well, come on, throw your punches. Let's see if you can hurt me. I bet I can hurt you more than me. And Joyce just didn't make the adjustments. He walked in flat-footed and got tagged repeatedly in the second round. Repeatedly. Big round for Zhang. Round 2. Big round. Joyce, he tried to keep a high guard, but it wasn't effective. The high guard just wasn't effective at all. He needed to keep his head off the line and use his feet. But he seemed a bit in awe of the occasion and ill-prepared for Zhang's 101 on heavyweight boxing, working behind that southpaw jab. Nice straight punches. Hard straight punches. Gunslinger-style boxing. Joyce was working away in the third, trying to get back into it, seeing if he could overwhelm this guy with volume. But he couldn't make a dent in him. Perhaps if he could have tagged him with something hard, he could have changed the complexion of the fight. Some people are saying that's because Joyce came in too light. I don't believe it's that. These are the same punches Joe has done a lot of damage with previously. But Zhang came there with his game plan, and even when he got tagged, he saw a lot of the shots coming. Joyce had to hit him with something that he wasn't expecting, and Joyce never did that throughout the fight. Predictable, telegraphed, unable to make adjustments. That's the bottom line. Third round was a lot better for Joyce. He could argue that he won the third, but Zhang was still landing some dangerous shots. There was a couple that went into the body, but it was mostly up top. He looked very dangerous in there. Joyce was very workmanlike, kept a high work rate going, but every time Zhang hit him, he either marked him up, swole him, or hurt him. Whether to head, to the body, this wasn't to be Joyce's day. Zhang was the better long-range boxer. His jab and his 1-2 were surprisingly quick and accurate. Third round was a tough round. You know what was so great about Zhang's performance? Even though he came in for the knockout and said as much, he wasn't throwing wild punches. He realized that once he was able to bust up Joe's face, I just keep touching him with jabs, backhands, 1-2s, and the fight's his. Joe came out for the fourth, working hard again, but his punches are telegraphed and he's throwing them from too far out. And that undeveloped right hand is getting him in all sorts of trouble with the backhand. It just continued. Joe came with the work rate in the fourth, and Zhang just opened up whenever he wanted, literally, coming forward with his massive head. Joe's jab just bouncing off his glove's head or his body, And he just walking Joe down so casually, and then he just launch out these shots from out of nowhere. No wild swings, just well-timed shots, which were just rocking Joe back, busting his face up. Joe's face was an awful mess by the end of the fourth. An awful mess. Zhang also put his head in there. Not illegally, but you know, I mean, yeah, give him a bit of head. And like, that's boxing. That's boxing. Nothing wrong with that. With a massive overhand right by Zhang. One of the few times he threw an arcing shaped punch. You know, like it bounced off Joyce's head. And he was just in with a bigger, better version of heavyweight. Like Joe's used to walking people down. He's getting a 101 on how to do that from Zhang. The right eye was in bad shape going out for the fifth. He tried to open up. Zhang just pushed him off or let him punch away at the guard, waiting for him to punch himself out. And then he'd come back with his own sneaky shots again. A very clever fighter, an educated fighter, Zhang. Like I said, he didn't go mad looking for a knockout. He just worked on the injured eye that was swelling and closing. He just worked on it with the backhand because Joyce couldn't see it. He couldn't see it coming. And it came to a point when Zhang landed on that right eye and he was timing that left hand to land on that right eye. You could see the pain. You could see it more in Joyce's body than his face because he was doing a good poker face, but the eye was in bad shape and his nose was busted up. I don't know if the nose was broken actually. You know, when Zhang had the fight in his grasp, you could see the confidence. He was breathing a little heavy, but you're bound to at 19 stone 12 and 39 years of age. But he backed off and with surprising agility and bounce and tried to counterpunch a little, just surveying the damage and what needed to be done. He was like a master teacher in there. Yes, I was that impressed. That was great heavyweight boxing. Behind that jab and that 1-2. He was in total control. Joyce was throwing a lot of punches, but he wasn't making an impact on the fight. I see Joyce spit into the bucket at the end of the fifth, and his mouth must have been busted up pretty bad because it's just pure blood he spat out. The referee had a look at Joyce, put his hand over his good eye, and put up 2 fingers to see if he could make out how much fingers he had up. The doctor and Howard Foster allowed it to continue. Zhang, he's got a big personality in that ring, and he arrogantly put his forearm in Joyce's forehead and kind of like swatted him away. 6th round, Joyce couldn't see the backhands coming and Zhang was almost taking the piss. Joyce, all he had left was the toughness and he absorbed a lot of good punches, yeah, but that alone wasn't going to win him the fight. Howard Foster, he had to step in again. The doctor came up to the ring, put his hand over the good eye again, put 1 finger up, and I don't know how many fingers Joyce was seeing. It looked like he was counting in Chinese because the referee waved it off this time. Howard Foster managed to keep his name out of controversy with a perfectly timed stoppage. Team Zhang apparently didn't want Foster to officiate the bout, and I understand why. Great calculated boxing by Zhang. He came here for a stoppage and he got the stoppage, but he didn't go gung-ho crazy swinging out. He executed his game plan to perfection. First L on Joyce's record. The heavyweight performance of the year so far, without a doubt. And basically there's a new player in town and his name is Zhilei Zhang. Joyce, 37 years of age. It's a bad L to take. He's not getting any younger, but he won't be content going out like that. He'll be back. He did say maybe if I could rematch the guy, but not with any conviction, and there's just no need for an immediate rematch. I don't care if they've got a rematch clause. It's not something that Joe needs to exercise immediately. No way. You know, it wasn't a competitive fight. It wasn't a fight where Joyce had the initiative and he got cut and lost the initiative or got tagged by a hard shot and never recovered. No. This was a schooling from the first bell to the last. There was no fluke or off day or anything to suggest anything like that. I ran this poll on Thursday. Will Joe Joyce win a world title in the next 2 years? 36% said yes, 50.6% said no, 11.6% undecided. Assuming after this evening, if I was to run it again, it could possibly go up as high as 80% saying no, not in the next 2 years. Perhaps never. It's amazing how boxers pick up a lot of haters. I didn't realize Joe Joyce had a lot of haters. I didn't. But there's a lot of people who just dislike him for whatever reason. Outside of that, there are a lot of people who marked out his limitations, and there was considerable contingent who were calling for the upset tonight. There's some saying this ain't an upset. Daniel Dubois has been getting under Joe's skin recently. One, Joe beat him soundly. When was it? End of 2020? And Daniel is in line to get a shot at USYK. Joyce was behind Daniel, and he was behind Hrgovic as mandatories. You think Daniel's going to be fighting Zhang or anyone remotely dangerous, screw up his title shot? Especially after what happened with Kevin Lerena, the cruiserweight. That pissed Joyce off, and he said as much. Also, Daniel was saying Joyce didn't beat him up that bad, and that pissed off Joyce as well, saying why did he quit on one knee, holding his eye, if that was the case. But why is he mad at Daniel that Daniel's getting a shot? Shouldn't he be mad at the promoter? And is he going to finally penetrate Joyce's skull that your promoter is treating the guy you beat better than you? You don't think Frank Warren could have had a word to the sanctioning bodies? WBA or WBO? It's a powerful promoter. To be more favourable of Joyce getting a shot before Daniel, whether he had to speak to the WBO, yeah, he could have did that. And I'm wondering, does Joyce stay at Queensbury after this loss here? What use does Frank have for him? Frank don't want to rebuild a 37-year-old heavyweight. He doesn't want to do that. He's got Tyson Fury, Daniel, and Moses and Tuma. You know, Frank didn't look happy when Joe beat Daniel. He didn't look happy. And you have to wonder, why did he allow this guy to take this fight here? Frank doesn't screw around when fighters are due title shots. Trust me, they don't take on difficult assignments like this. They don't. You see, Joyce is getting a lot of criticism, but he lost to someone good. He didn't just lose to anybody. And where's Frank? Was Frank at the Copper Box? Because I didn't see him do no post-fight interviews in support of Joe or anything, to say anything. No, he's not there. That wouldn't happen with Tyson Fury or Daniel. You know, Moses is an 18-year-old kid who better have good people around him. Because I'm hearing the critiques already because he got taken the distance and he didn't look spectacular. Dude, he's an 18-year-old free fight novice who took on a 31-year-old man, a Ukraine fighter, with 23 fights, and he's never been stopped in none of them. He's knocked out 6 of 9 of his victories. He's lost 13, but he's never been stopped. And this is what I mean. Frank, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But in my opinion, Moses was pulled out of the amateur system too early. An observation that was made about Daniel Dubois. Queensbury and BT could have made an investment, a deal, that you fund his living expenses while he trains for the next Olympics. And you can't guarantee gold, you can't even guarantee bronze. But you know, you have to speculate to accumulate. Take him to an Olympics and try and get him to medal. Try and get him to gold, if possible. 4 years' time, 22, you make sure it's in the contract, you get first options to sign him. Then he can turn pro. That's a great age to turn pro as a heavyweight. Do you know how much pressure he's going to be under? To knock people out. Because that's what they expect in pros, is you to knock people out. Amateurs, you get a chance to develop your boxing. Pros is cutthroat. You're pitching this kid in the division where it can take a little time to develop that heavyweight man strength. The heavyweight division is where Foreman won the title at 44, Jersey Joel won it at 37. Generally, they can mature at a later stage than the other weight classes. And when you pitch this 18-year-old kid in these drama, cutthroat-fueled boxing cards, I don't think there was a need for it, really. And they're not even putting him in 4 threes, they're putting him in 6 threes. 18-year-old. Yeah, and I've seen him speak. Yeah, he's very mature for an 18-year-old. Very mature. But what does that mean? He's still a kid compared to the vast majority of heavyweights. He's a kid. Mike Tyson is a freak of nature. You're going to beat Mike Tyson's record by 2025 and become the youngest heavyweight champion. Oh, no pressure, Moses. Flipping hell.
We're not seeing a lot of good fights get made. There's one tomorrow night in Joe Joyce. What's going on in the heavyweight division? Why is nobody fighting each other? And are you getting sick and tired of looking, thinking, why are all these guys not getting in the ring?
No, I'm really not mad about the heavyweight division because the only fight that's not happening that we really want to see is USYK and Fury. But the whole thing about that is that's a boxing match. That's two boxers who probably nobody going to really engage. They're both going to circle around the ring, and that may turn out to not to be the fight that we want to see. I said this last year. I said I don't think necessarily the world want to see that fight right now because the heavyweight division has been giving us too many really good fights.
Yeah.
Let's keep it like that. So let's leave. We got 2 boxers as champions in the heavyweight division now. Let's keep the 2 boxers as champions. Let's let them fight everybody else first. When there ain't nobody else to fight, then they fight each other because they ain't got nothing else to do. But right now, Usyk and Wilder is a good fight right now.
Who wins that fight?
I don't know. I think Usyk, but it's still a good fight right now. If he can take Wilder punch, Usyk wins the fight. But it's a great fight right now. We haven't seen that yet. That's a great fight right now. Joshua and Fury is a great fight right now. I mean, those are great fights that we know going to be great fights. Those are action-packed fights right now. We know both those fights going to be action-packed. Usyk and Fury, that's not going to be action-packed fight. That's 2 boxers, 2 technical guys. We're going to hurt the heavyweight division making that fight right now. That's just not the fight to make right now.
I kind of see what Roy's saying, but then again, wouldn't Fury assume the role as the aggressor and try and get Usyk out of there? I don't think Fury's going to try and box Usyk. But then again, styles make fights. It might not be a fight where Fury can just wade in like that. Maybe he would have to use a bit more thought, control, and range to contain Usyk. Lots of people have tried to rush Usyk, and it hasn't worked. So maybe Roy sees something that his advanced boxing brain can see that I can't. I think a lot of it comes down to risk-reward. It's a very difficult fight if you can't maximize your return if you're a Fury, Bob Arum or Frank Warren. But from what the Saudis are saying, they were going to earn a bucket load of money in Saudi Arabia. So if it's risk-reward, the reward was there. The bottom line is, Roy, the fight should have happened. It should have happened. Floyd and Leonard Enderby have set a threshold for Tank Davis, whether they like it or not. They will say things like, he's the face of the sport. He's the A-side. But we're talking about a boxer who's probably never cracked over 300,000 pay-per-view buys. Ryan Garcia has set a threshold for himself as well, where people will quote his social media following as tangible evidence that he's a superstar. Now, they both fight next week in what's supposedly a super fight. There's not one legit sanctioning belt on the line in this fight. And I don't want to break it down that the fight needs a sanctioning belt to validate it, because that's not necessarily true all the time. We can go through history, like Joe Calzaghe versus Hopkins was for the Ring Magazine belt. There wasn't a sanctioning belt on the line. Barrera had a series of fights back in the day where he didn't have a sanctioning strap. And he was the dominant featherweight when he was doing that. They're not even fighting at the 135-pound lightweight limit. Neither of them have beat any of their significant peers at the weight class, whether that be a Devin Haney, a Lomachenko. Teofimo, he's moved up recently, but you've got to put him in there. You haven't beat him. How would that constitute a super fight when you haven't beat the best in your weight class, neither of you? How? So we've already established that resume-wise and sales, it doesn't compare to a Sugar Ray Leonard, a Canelo, a Floyd, an Anthony Joshua. It doesn't compare. We've already established that. And now, let's talk about this popularity, the whole youth culture angle. Well, that's been stolen by the likes of KSI and Jake Paul. They don't have control of that market. There's not a bunch of kids talking about Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. Go check how much pay-per-view Tank did for his last fight against Hector Garcia. Compare that to the pay-per-view buys of Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. Somewhere over at the PBC, it got lost in translation. Tank is a boxer. He is not a YouTuber. He is not a mainstream personality. He's not. He's a boxer. They would have did better if they took on Devin Haney for all straps and did some actual, real, grassroots boxing promotion and made a show of this. Like, I'm not feeling a big buzz around it. I have no doubt by Wednesday and Thursday the buzz will pick up. But as for it doing 2 million pay-per-view buys, like Oscar De La Hoya was saying, no way. Now, I get what Oscar was doing. You know, I didn't take it that he meant it literally. He was quoting a high number to hype up the event. And if it does 800 or 600, they'll be more than happy. But will it do that? Will it do that? Will it live up to the hype? Forget the numbers for a minute. Will the fight live up to the hype? I think Ryan will get exposed. I really do. Head too high up in the air for a sniper like Tank. I've heard a lot of people talk about Ryan's speed, and that being an issue for Tank. Well, if he can throw them combinations I see him throw when he's training, working out, when no opponent is in front of him. If he can throw a combination like that in the fight, then yeah, that could be a factor. But I've never seen him do that in a fight. I want to see what kind of round comes out there. I know what I'm expecting from Tank, but I want to see what kind of round comes out. And I'm looking forward to the fight.